Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast, where I bring you the best and brightest from the world of business, marketing, and personal growth to help you harness your inner tenacity and drive your career and life forward. My guest today, Marc Siden, is the CEO of Cloudwater Brands, an all-natural, great-tasting CBD beverage. He's a seasoned marketing leader and former co-founder CEO of Onboard Informatics, a self-funded real estate tech company that pioneered the dissemination of online real estate data to companies like Zillow, Trulia, and Chase Bank, to name a few. And his resume includes being a key advisor to successful companies like Clot, Nabewise, and Scout Ventures. This guy knows what he's doing. And he also does some great philanthropy work with Torch A. That's a nonprofit organization that works with underserved New York City high school students by exposing them to a career path training via internships. Super important. And he's also a founder coach of Hockey in Harlem. That's pretty cool. A nonprofit organization based in New York that works with inner city kids to promote education and work ethic through hockey. We're going to talk about all that and a whole lot more. We're going to talk about CBD, his career story. So let's dig in. Marc Siden, welcome to the podcast, my man.
Well, thank you for having me. Quite an intro there.
It's kind of like, I like to hype people up. I like to give it all. So we're certainly going to talk about Cloudwater. I want to talk about CBD and all that good stuff. But, as I mentioned in our chat before, this show is about showcasing career journeys and, seasoned leaders like yourself. I'd love if you could just share with my tribe a little bit of your career story, how you got from where you were to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the question. Look, I was born into a duality of parents, analytical and creative. My father was an entrepreneur. He quit Columbia Law School to start a business, and I saw that early on. I got the bug, and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, went to work for a law firm. They told me to get out. They said, "You're trapped in this body in a law firm. Go do your own thing." And I took that advice, and I started businesses in my 20s. And, the mistakes I made, we don't have long enough on this show to talk about it, but
we can make it a three-parter.
I like to say my failures are my tuition to success. And through a series of that and learning, I started to get it a little. And, I started a VC company that invested into a data company. That data company became the company I restarted after it failed as Onboard Informatics, and ran that for 15 years with a great partner, managed through the financial crisis, and we sold it. We were very lucky. And, then this kind of fell into my lap. It was an opportunity, it knocks on the door, doesn't know that you're trying to take a break from 16 years of grinding. And, I'm back to the grind before I knew it.
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned it, right? You talk about putting yourself in the right place for things to fall into your lap. And it's one of those, people kind of always toss around, their definition of success, right? It's opportunity plus luck and everything. But what do you mean, like, putting yourself in the right place for fall things into your lap? I'd love your perspective on this.
Yeah, I define success as living on your own terms, right? It's not a monetary or, superficial thing. It's nice to have comfort, and I'm blessed to have some of that. But as a poker player, I always say I'd rather be lucky than good. When somebody says nice hand, well, maybe I played it right, but I was lucky enough to get the cards.
Right.
I think, you position yourself in life and be ready for opportunities, because a lot of us walk with our heads down, metaphorically and, and in reality now, and that great opportunity can pass you by, and, you have to be ready for it. And I just happened to be in that place and ready to accept an opportunity that fell in my lap. And even though I knew nothing about beverage, and we'll talk about that, I did know about starting a company in a basement and, operating through extreme adversity with no money. And I was broke personally too. And all those things made me tougher. It was hard, but
Absolutely.
It made me ready to accept other opportunities. And I'm humbled and grateful that the opportunity came into my lap, because I did not sit at home saying, "Oh, I have this great idea." Somebody approached me, but with the confidence that perhaps I can help them build this idea. And, so like I said, I was very lucky to be in that position.
I love it, man. So let's talk about Cloudwater for a moment as I, showcase it. And thank you so much. I got a 4-pack sampler of these in advance. And my wife and I have a pretty regimented CBD program for myself. I've been consuming CBD for about 3 years for anxiety. It helps me sleep. So I use a combination. I found a company up in Vermont that makes a honey. It's a CBD infused honey. And it's just the quality of it. I mix it with chamomile tea at night. I do that about 4 nights a week. And it's just, I call it a smooth landing. Right. And there's a lot of misconceptions, and CBD works in different ways too. And it's like anything else, like something affects somebody else differently. And it's also about the quality of it, the concentration, how you're consuming it, how it's absorbed into the system, how you ingest it, and all that stuff too. So before we talk about Cloudwater for a minute, I want to just quickly talk about, CBD. There's a lot of misconceptions in the marketplace about what it is and what it does. But, in your professional, viewpoint, why is CBD so good?
Well, and I appreciate, kind of that segue. I think the most operative thing that you said is what everybody should do. I mean, I can't get on here and pound my chest or say CBD. You have to really experience it for yourself, and the frequency, the dosage, when it's good for you, when it might not be good for you, not health-wise, but the first thing I did, because I knew something about CBD, I went out and I got an online certification. And, coming from the data world, it was important for me to understand the science. I'm no expert, but I was mesmerized by the efficacy of what CBD does in multiple ways. And it really starts with your inner body chemistry, right? And you have actually natural CBD receptor cells that metabolize CBD. And it creates, among other things, homeostasis or balance in your central nervous system. And I think some of the misconception is, oh, it's going to chill me out, or, oh, it's going to get me high. And that's understandable. Starting with, the CBD isolate that we put in Cloud, it has 0.0% THC. So
there's no THC in it.
Psychoactivity. It's not, the legal levels are 0.3%, but there is 0% in our drink. So
is it a full spectrum?
No, it's an isolate.
Okay, so
we purposely did that because, we know that the market's going to grow and expand and demand more, but from an educational purpose, it's hard enough to bifurcate that from cannabis, right? And explain. Imagine when I first started, I handed somebody a drink. They're like, no, I can't do that. And I'm like, well, that's too high.
It's not weed.
Yeah, but they didn't have the education. Thankfully, CBD has become a star, right? And so many people are now more educated, which we love. In terms of what it does to you, we make no claims as a company, Adam, but, so many people are writing in right now and thanking us and the world of CBD. It's not just Cloud, that they're taking it in this extreme world of fear and anxiety, kids and craziness, and it is helping them find their homeostasis. And that's what it does. Like, we're all revving at 4,000 RPM, especially.
Exactly.
It just brings you down to idle. And when you're idle, you could take a nap, you can work out, and you go to a meeting, right? So it's not going to put you to sleep, but I call it calm energy. The smooth landing is an excellent, representation of it. And then in terms of dosage, I'm sorry, but it's like telling people how many cups of coffee they should drink. You have to experiment with it.
Right. It affects everyone differently, caffeine.
Through tinctures. Obviously there's a plethora of it on the market today.
Yeah. And it also comes down to quality too. I mean, I went through my own test and learning process. I went through, a CBD pen, which I didn't like because I stopped smoking, things. I don't like that for my lungs too. And then I tried the honey, which was a game changer for me. And we talk a lot about CBD too and the time of day. For me, I know when I take it at night, it's going to bring me to a level where I'm going to just relax my mind a little bit, and not with the same things as THC. I'm not getting high. I'm not, having any of those thoughts, but it's just bringing my body down. So, my wife and I, we're certainly big fans of it, and I've tried oils and everything affects me a little bit differently. But this product, and here's a quick endorsement here. Not only does the CBD work for us, and it doesn't work the same for everybody, but these are absolutely delicious. So let's talk a little, if you're putting a beverage out there, first and foremost, this thing's got to taste good. Right. Because otherwise no one's going to drink it at all. Like that's first and foremost. So let's, dig into the Cloudwater story. How'd you get from, somebody, having this first conversation with you to me holding up this bottle on this podcast right now?
I still pinch myself because I can't believe it myself.
And that cool sweatshirt you're wearing.
Thank you very much. So when I was approached by Barry Kelman, my co-founder, he had been in LA and tasted some CBD water, and he thought it tasted like crap. his sister runs Citramax Labs, which is a very reputable flavor house in New Jersey. They make beverages for the entire industry, and she made some samples. And Barry asked me to help him, kind of get this off the ground just by making some introductions, and I did. And one thing led to another, and there was a third meeting at his apartment, and he asked me to come just to vet out the people that, the discussion. And I mean, I didn't really orchestrate it this way, but after they told him how compelling this opportunity was, I looked at him and I said, Barry, just make sure you find a really good CEO, because Barry's not an operator. I mean, he's the ideator here. He's a foodie. He makes these flavors.
He's the idea guy.
But he's not the operational guy. And all of a sudden, all the people in the room look at me and they're like, what about you? And I literally said, what about me? I don't know anything about this. And that was an honest, off the cuff answer. And when they left, Barry said, look, you're my guy. I want you to be my co-founder and launch the business. And, again, I was humbled. And I said, all right, let me do some due diligence. And look, what I did is I think any other diligent entrepreneur would do. I went and I insulated myself. I went to meet with his sister. I said, you have to be on my team. I don't want to pay you. You have to have equity. I met Carol Dollard, the former COO of Vitamin Water. She thinks this could be the next Vitamin Water. She became an investor, and now she's our COO. And that one-to-one, our co-packer, who makes millions of cases a year, loved the brand. He invested. He's on our team. And so at that first meeting, I'm surrounded by beverage royalty, and these people are on my team. They're not telling me what I want to hear. They're telling me what I need to know. If I've done anything right, it's put these amazing people behind and around me to help me facilitate that air that was an idea into this bottle. And I just have to say, the thought and care that goes into every single taste of flavor, has been hours and hours of work and pickiness behind the scenes.
Yeah. And I want to pause on that for a moment. I told you off air, and I don't talk about it a lot. My first job was for Vitamin Water when I was, 22 years old. And I knew a small percentage of what I actually know right now. So I kicked myself from that opportunity. But I remember very distinctly learning about the flavor process, because we would sample, right? We were the focus group, and we would try new flavors and really understanding how much work goes into coming up with a flavor. And especially when you do it like your product with natural flavors, right? So there's really an understanding of the flavor and then the chemistry behind it, the sustainability, the sourcing. How do you get something from a fruit and the essence and the true flavor into a bottle and make it, commercializable? I don't even know if that's a word, right? Like, how do you make that flavor? How could you mass produce that flavor in a pure way, right? Like, I don't think many folks understand how much science and work goes into that.
Exactly. And that's on a normal day. And then you
R&D, right?
Then you add this fickle, bitter compound called CBD, and it throws off the pHs and things like that. And it's actually how you put the order in which you put it into the mixture is going to affect the outcome.
It does.
Carol, who I alluded to, also has a PhD in biochemistry.
I didn't know that.
So she worked with the flavor house to create proprietary methodologies. I know that's fancy, but to create a shelf stable and a leveled, mixture, so that each sip you take has, a ratio of what you're looking for, flavor and
exactly.
D, right? And it took a while. It's not easy at all.
No, it's not. So we have a bunch of parts here. We have the product, right? We have, the flavor of it. We have, figuring out the consistency and the quality of the CBD compound and making sure that's consistent as well too, right? Because that's plant derived, and there's, different strains that could come from different plant elements. And I don't want to get too scientific here because I want to focus on the brand. So we got the idea, we got the flavor. Let's talk about the brand values. Like, how is this brand going to be different? There's a ton of CBD products out there. How do we talk about making this product stand out on the shelf? I mean, it's a premium product, right? And I assume that was the focus here. Let's come up with a premium product. How do you figure out who your target market is? How do you figure out what the bottle looks like and the marketing plans behind it? Let's pull back that eight-part question, Marc.
Yeah, well, no, those are all great questions. And I think it starts, and, for entrepreneurs who are thinking about a business, people talk about execution, but the planning is really the most crucial. Like, if you're going to war, the plan, how you're going to, advance that attack is incredibly important. You also have to know that the minute that first bullet goes off, the plan's going to change, and you better be nimble. So don't hardwire something so hard. So, relating to this, we knew it was going to be a very busy space. We knew that there would be exactly what happened, everybody and their mother. And
it was a gold rush.
A gold rush, right? So how do we stick out? So the first thing we did is said, you know what, we're going to go slow. We're not we're not getting on the highway right now. Let those guys go first. And let's think about how we want to stick out. And you said premium product, we said premium experience. And that means enlightening the senses to us from the minute you look at this bottle. When you walk by the cooler, right? There's not many that look like this, or the white bottle that you have. And it's a marketing expense because we spend more money on our bottles than typical beverage companies would want to, but it's part of marketing to catch your eye.
Right. It's how much you want to invest in that blended cost towards marketing and what's it going to pay out in the end. There's a lot of thought that goes into this.
You can put up billboards and you can do digital ads, and that's crowded too. But the point of purchase is where, this lives as, part of our distribution strategy. You want people to say, "Ooh, what is that?" And then, obviously we thought about just being simple and elegant, but also transparent. We put, QR codes on the bottles so that you can go right to our lab results and see the purity of the CBD. And so we don't want a question not, answered for you, when you look at that. And then you open the bottle, it's an eco-friendly, reusable, bottle.
I'm clinking the bottle, aluminum.
And you've tasted, for instance, the chocolate. When you open the chocolate, there is an aroma that comes out of that. And you're like, wow, like a wine, right?
I got to tell everybody that chocolate, it's Aztec chocolate and strawberry, right? That's special, man. That's a special drink right there. That's delicious.
Yeah, we'll talk about how we rolled the dice and we took
the dessert drink.
But, we have 4 flavors, and we wanted those flavors, to be artisanal. We wanted them to be different. And, we didn't want to price it, at the most expensive. We certainly don't deserve to be the least expensive. So we purposely priced it in the middle of the sector, right? But wrapping around the branding and a premium experience where you say, great packaging, great flavors. And this is the feedback. I'm not pounding my chest. But, it was all those thought. And you can't just launch a product and put it out there and then go back and redo those things. So we're much slower to the market than some other brands, but we're starting to gain very nice momentum because people are reacting in a very similar way to you. And I think that's the great differentiator, is just kind of the thought we put into it. And obviously our packaging and marketing is we believe stands out from, most of the average pack there.
And what's the average retail price if I was going to go into a store and buy it?
Between $6 and $6.
Okay, and what's a typical CBD beverage on the market? How does that line up? Is it mid range, higher?
It's right in the middle. So There's a lot of I call them CBD soda cans out there. It's not that they're bad. I have some ones that I really like. $3-4. You have some other ones that are priced at $7, $8, $9. And we have 25 milligrams of CBD. It's among the highest, if not the highest. We believe we're one of the best tasting. And we're smack in the middle because accessibility is important to us, and premium doesn't mean being standoffish. And I think that's a great misconception in CPG and in any product.
And how do you balance the property when you're having a conversation in the marketplace with consumers, talking about the flavor, talking about the benefits of CBD, and how do you also talk about the quality of that CBD that goes into it?
Sure. And it is, they're all important buckets. It starts and
for people that know what they're talking about are going to ask those questions.
It starts and ends with the taste. The days of drinking something green that tastes like crap are over. You have to bring taste to the market, and you can't sacrifice health to do it. So we sweeten with, raw honey. We don't use artificial sweeteners. I will never do that. And I say never, and I won't, because flavor is important, and it's 40 calories. So you can give up a few calories. I'm a keto guy. I still drink this because it's natural sugar and, it's great. So
it's fine.
It starts there. Getting a very high level organic CBD, proving it through your lab results, like I said, and make sure it's a compound that mixes well with your drink. I can't tell you how many CBD samples we went through, to get there.
That's the fun part too. The cocktail work that goes into it, right?
We'll get to cocktails because that was a happy accident that came from not even thinking about it. And none of us are brilliant. Actually, our consumers are brilliant.
Well, the mixologist, right? The home mixologist.
Well, I'll just say they mix incredibly well with cocktails. They really do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
The benefits, which we want to be more overt about, but we can't, and we don't, because our ethos, again, is to just have that transparency and, the right ethics. And I think our drink speaks for itself. But science is out there, and it's telling people that it's efficacious, and the milligram or the dosage is efficacious at 25 milligrams. So we've had some tailwinds behind us to help us there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And going back to it, I think it's a misconception in the marketplace. And one of the pieces, and listen, I'm not a CBD expert. I am a avid consumer. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing it for a long time. And I look at it also when I put my marketing hat on. I think that a lot of brands out there are kind of riding that thought where consumers think that this will get you high, right? The consumers don't have the right information around CBD, and they kind of play to it. They don't not say it, and they don't say it. Right? They don't call it out, that, and I think that's a big problem with a lot of the CBD products that are out there. There's not enough education. And I think some of these brands are slightly misleading. I'm not going to call them out by name. We're not here to do that. But I think just generally speaking, this is still the early days. It's unprecedented. It's, we're figuring this market out, right?
Yeah. I like to be part of an industry and a positive part of an industry. And I love competitors. I've reached out to some competitors, have rapport. It's all good, keeps you on your toes. We're all in this together.
100%.
But there are some folks out there that are slightly pissing me off right now. And I think it's a move, and I understand, to sell more product, but it hurts the integrity of the industry for all of us. And making any claims or, taking things off of your bottle so that you can market it on Facebook or whatever, it's just not cool to me. And I think the consumer is in that inflection point, understanding, okay, I'm just starting to grasp what CBD is, a compound, that maybe it won't get me high. And now I want to focus now on the benefits of it. And that's only going to take this baby-like industry to the billions and billions. There's so much around. Short-sightedness is just going to come back to hurt us. And the consumer today is self-optimized in their health. More people, care about their health coming out of this crisis. Are you kidding me? People are going to want to boost their immune system, stay healthy. There's going to be anxiety. They're going to turn to CBD more than ever. Why would we do that? Right?
Let's put those pharmaceutical stuff away, man. Let's put that away, right? I mean, I'll be honest too, like back in the day, right? I would take a little of this, a little of that to kind of calm me down. And, we talk about the side effects of pharma too. And that's why I initially shifted for me personally into CBD, because I don't like how I feel after a Xanax, a Klonopin, any of those things. And they were too strong for me. I didn't need all that. I needed something natural, something that would just kind of work with my body, my own chemistry here. No, I absolutely love it. One final question on the marketing here. Who's your target market for this product?
Yeah, so we did some research in the beginning, and we, I think we pretty much nailed it. It was, somewhere between millennial and Gen X, and our data, and slightly skewed to the female. And our data for the last, kind of year being in commercial, retail, and, online, really backs that up. The aperture is open to, most demographics between 18 and 65. So we're getting bites from a lot of people. Vitamin water, I said to Carol, well, who's your customer? She was like, everybody. And that's scary as a marketing person to say, wait a second.
Well, how do I talk to them?
Oh, right, exactly. But I think with CBD, and if that's the star, and then there's, the benefits, any age group can suffer from some of the ailments that CBD, studies show that work, whether it's inflammation, pain, stress, and anxiety. So it's not agnostic to a demographic. And then with, overlay of the health consciousness, starting now in the early age, my daughter's 14, she's working out all the time. She reads every label. I see that these kids are growing up more educated, empowered about their health. So, that trend is going to continue, and it's wise to have a fairly wide net out there, but don't get the messaging lost. But again, CBD is kind of ubiquitous in a sense that you can market it to a lot of generations.
Does your daughter enjoy these products?
Loves it. Yeah. Both my daughter.
And what's the general thought? Because I don't know the answer to this. My kids, I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I don't know this yet. Like, what's the general industry thought process on when, the earliest age that someone can consume CBD safely?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's safe, but for children.
Right. So, the official statement as a company is that, you should be over 18 and and still, if you have any question, consult a physician. It's pretty easy. Like, we're not going to selling, right? But
you're not selling drugs.
A lot of right. And kids suffer from anxiety, especially now. And when I studied and took this online course, there was zero, toxicity. Epidiolex, which is a FDA-approved drug, is administered to children who have pediatric seizures in doses that are 10 times the amount of this.
Yes.
For them with very little side effects. So 25 milligrams, and I'm not making a claim for my kids, actually is fine, but it's to each parent and their own.
Exactly.
They should think about the risk reward there. And I have not found any risks, but I'm in the business. So
Yeah, and I have a friend whose young child suffers from seizures, and they went through a whole CBD regimen that was so effective, and it worked so well for them, and the combination with diet change, and they've seen such growth from that. So kudos to that. One last piece, we talk about Cloud's Water brand being elevated, right? And I want to finish this up too, like. How do you want this product perceived in the marketplace, right? How do you want consumers, to keep it top of mind and always be thinking, you know what, I really love Cloud Water. I want to keep my fridge stocked with it. I want to turn into an advocate. I want to, give this to my friends when they come over. I want to, be a brand advocate for this. Talk to us a little bit about that elevated brand experience and how do you get people there?
yeah, and if you look at our social media that I think has been so well curated, it kind of sends a statement that we want to be a great looking, attractive brand. We want to be approachable and cool, but again, we don't want to be too cold. And a lot of people see us, kind of optically, and they're like, "Wow, I love your packaging." And again, the elevation is kind of the cross section of like enlightening those senses that I talked about before. Is looking at the bottle, reading the ingredients, tasting it, and also then finding the versatility in it. Like, wait a second. And we have such a great social community. People post, like, I stopped taking Xanax, like you alluded to. I replaced my afternoon cup of coffee because it actually clears my mind. There's a difference of pepping up and clearing your mind.
Yep.
They're the same, by the way, right? And I drink it with a cocktail. I drink it before a meeting in the morning. And to me, that was the greatest elevation that we could receive. Because
testimonials are the best, man.
But the versatility that people can incorporate this into their daily life throughout their day, to me, that was great. And then, of course, we get the accolades on, our thoughtfulness on the package. But the elevation, like I said, it should be a very consistent experience across the board. And, again, we're working very hard to achieve that. And the feedback so far has been overwhelming, to suggest it.
That's fantastic, man. Kudos on that. So let's wrap up the product chat. I'll do one more in here. Let's hear about the cocktails, right? Because it's from innovation and social media. Like, what was like the first one that came across your desk and you're like, I didn't think about that. Let's give it a try.
Yeah. Well, we did a lot of things in the beginning, and I love to have my Thursday night cocktails. So we started out with grapefruit, mint, and basil, and blood orange and coconut, and we started mixing them with tequila and vodka. And, we were just like, wow. And the wow was that, the flavors hold up so nicely in it. And it also cuts through the alcohol. So there's no bitterness and just very refreshing. Right. And again, it's not adding a ton of calories because you're not even pouring the whole bottle in it. And, the impact was, the outcome was great. I mean, it was just, first of all, it tasted great. And then we didn't really say anything or market it. But people started coming back to us and said, I mixed this with my vodka and it was amazing. And it just a trend started to catch on, and we started posting some cocktail recipes and mocktail recipes. And now it's part of, not our marketing, but certainly part of the conversation.
Right. I mean, if you think about it too, if you think about the whole, the La Croix, the sparkling water category, like that whole category, I mean, it's a mixer. Right. Plenty of people drink it straight up too. But like, I know my wife, she mixes it with her tequila, and we're going to try this. Now, what about, mixing, how does the effects of CBD and alcohol, like, because I have not tried it. Right. Is it an enhancer? Does it like change the effect of alcohol? Just curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I, in the beginning, because maybe I'm more accustomed to it, I did notice that I had a little enhanced buzz, which was good. So I drank a little less, right?
Yeah, less consumption of alcohol, correct.
Again, we make mocktails and people love that as an alcohol alternative, right? And there was a time I had maybe 3 or 4 drinks with CBD, and I was like, okay, I feel that. So I think it not like I was, out or I was psychedelic or anything like that, but you could definitely feel, a little bit more buzzed than normally. So, this is an enjoy responsibly scenario. And I think, again, it goes to dosing. Having one drink on, it's not going to do anything to you. And then
it applies to everything.
Right?
Everything in moderation.
Yeah, absolutely. So too much is probably going to make you feel a little bit more woozy than you would. And, you're not supposed to drive anyway. So, don't drive. It's not going to.
Don't operate heavy machinery, no forklifts, none of that stuff. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about leadership. Sure, absolutely.
To say one more thing on that, and I'm going to say it because we're just riffing. I drink one of these after I drink at night. Okay. And this is not a business claim. I do not wake up with a hangover. Okay. That's me. And a few of my friends have commented the same way. I don't have any science. I don't have anything to know, but that's happened to me multiple times.
And I'm going to take you up on that. I'm actually, I got my email today. I'm going to order a case to the house because I'm a brown spirits guy. I love my bourbon and I love my scotch, a couple of days a week. I mean, that's kind of my thing too, but I get ever since, like it was literally when I went from age 29 to age 30, my hangovers just went from 0 to 100, and I've tried everything. So I am going to try this, next time I have my Friday night cocktail.
I had bourbon and the chocolate the other night. And again, it sounds like I'm just here to market. It was so incredible.
You meant in a cocktail?
Yeah.
I'm going to try that.
And if it sucks, you please come back on and say it sucks. But I loved it so much. I think you're going to like it.
All right. I'm definitely going to try that there. So let's talk about leadership for a little bit. And, you talk about relearning everything in a new industry and how to lead blindfolded. What does that mean, man? What does leading blindfolded mean?
Yeah, well, it means that I was so anxious to insulate myself with this team. And I was like, yeah, look at this great job I did in building a team. And we're sitting at meetings and they're rattling off these acronyms and stuff. And I'm like, I have no idea what these people are talking about. And I was, sitting there very insecure. Like, wait a second, why am I sitting in this seat? I look at the title, I'm the CEO. I should have command over this. And I had zero, right? And a really good feeling. Obviously it incentivizes you to really learn. And thank God over the last 18 months, I've learned a lot and certainly feel more comfortable. But when folks would turn to me about gross margins and blended margins and FOBs and chargebacks and this, Adam, I'm not lying. I walk out of the room and feel nauseous, right?
Because you didn't know. You didn't know what it meant.
Right. And I literally had a blindfold on. And what really took over was, the instincts that I learned when I launched my first business in a basement. I was broke and nobody gave a crap, and I didn't have any money. And you just have to figure it out. And you do. And so it was a scary, trying moment for me. And I'm grateful for it, as crappy as I felt. But I'd be lying to anybody out there if I knew what I was doing, because I didn't. And whether that comes across good or bad, I have no idea. I don't care. It just was the reality of, where I was. And I feel like I've caught up, which is great. But, certainly, oh boy.
But these are lessons learned, man. And going back to what you said when we first started this conversation, it's a combination of self-awareness and being humble to really be a great leader. To know that you may not have all the answers, right? But knowing to be transparent and opening yourself up to learning. And I think personally, I've had the opportunity to work under some tremendous leaders. I'll fill you in later on my career story and everything. But one of the things about, Gary Vaynerchuk that he taught me was vulnerability and being open. And that was a game changer for me in my career. And how I am emerging to be, the true leader that I always had in me. So kudos to that. And let's talk a little bit about what's happening right now, managing through a crisis. And, I also believe that, business does not stop. I think right now you have to keep pushing forward, but also be mindful of tone and, being empathetic, but also being, as a leader, rallying your troops up and morale and everything, but having that balance between being optimistic and realistic rationale. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, you have so many great talking points. Vulnerability, I want to touch on that.
Absolutely.
I grew up a hockey player, had a lot of fights in my life, stuck up for my teammates, nice guy. But
hockey's on the ice is completely different. That you're in it, right? It's completely different rules.
Who are fourth line NHL guys, and
side note for a second, and I've been talking about this with my buddies. Hockey, like, how is a sport you're legally allowed to fight? Like, if you had a fight in the parking lot, you'll get arrested. But hockey on the ice, it's a sport, right?
I have met some of my best friends in life through dropping the gloves with them. It's ironic, but seriously, some of my closest friends, we have scrapped. There's the code in hockey, but this is not a hockey. That's right. But when I talk about my toughness comes through my vulnerability, right? And I think every leader needs to find that in them. And part of that is accountability. And I don't think we have we have a very degree of what true accountability is in life. And you can't sit there and lead with your mouth, right? You like you said, somewhere between optimism and pessimism is realistic or realism. And that's where you need to find the sweet spot from yourself first. And then you can't BS people these days. They're going to pick up on that. So managing through a crisis is, really taking a step back and assessing the situation. And, what we did, and again, around my circle, I have great advisors who have been in the beverage space. I have great investors who really care about the business. And I called an emergency meeting and I said, okay, well, I'd been through this in 2008 and, we were self-funded and we managed through it and I learned some things and we're going to do that again. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to stop, because if you sit there and hoard all of your money and sit in there, you'll fade away. And if you throw your money away because you're in denial, you're going out of business. And look, I don't think it's rocket science. We became an online world overnight. We shifted all of our resources to our digital strategies, which we had already started. And we preserved cash. We pushed back some hires, and everybody dug in. And that's the most important part. You can financial engineer on a spreadsheet. The team dug in. And I said three things to the team. This will define us for years to come, right? And what we do and how we act now, this will be with us for the long term. And it might recreate our brand, but just know that. Secondly, it is the time. It will push innovation, scrappiness, and creativity, and it will push all of you to limits you haven't been before. And I've been there, and trust me, there's greatness on the other side,
100%.
right? And third, we're going to make it through even better. And, that was hope, but, you can't sit there and say, well, I think we're going to make it through. And we set off on a course. We grew our online sales by 400% since February and acquired hundreds of new customers. And this team, and it's still not about me, but this team, through the adversity, through the fear, shows up every single day and works their ass off. And I could not be more proud to be through this team. And guess what? We're going to make it through, it looks like, thank God. And on the other side is going to be a company that is 10 times better than when it started in this crisis. Not whether it's the revenue, it's going to be the character of this business. And I can't wait to start looking back on this and then looking forward to the future of Cloudwater, because it's looking bright right now.
Dude, that is unbelievable. And I'm smirking and nodding, and I have like kind of chills right now after you just said that. Like, same thing for me, man. Like, I made the shift in my mind to say, what, even though I lost, 60%, I don't even say I lost 60% of my business. I'm a recruiter and we'll talk about that offline, but I lost 60% of the opportunities that I would have had without this. Right. And I said, you know what, instead of, curling into a ball and fading away, I'm going to double down. I'm going to triple down on deepening my relationships, tripling my content, building my own personal brand. And I know for a fact that I'm going to come out of this stronger and on top. And I absolutely love what you just said, man. Hey guys, we're going to do something pretty cool here on the podcast. It's actually your first time. We're going to be doing a follow-up. And with me today is Marc Siden. He is the CEO of Cloudwater. Marc, welcome back. Good to have you. It's been 2 months since we talked at the beginning of May. We're going to catch up and talk about how everything's going with you.
Great to be here. And how do you juxtapose it feels like yesterday, but very long 2 months?
Well, I think that
I feel both.
It has been. It's been short. And I'm looking at the calendar. I mean, we're recording this mid-July right now, and we recorded back in May, and the show's going to come out in August. And it's been crazy. The last 4 months have been unprecedented and incredibly challenging, to say the least. And going back to the original conversation, which everyone will listen to at this point, where we filled everyone in on Marc's story and the growth of Cloudwater. But as a CEO, I mean, let's look back here. We talk about this time capsule, and now we're a couple of months past the original recording date. What have you learned in the last couple of months? Let's talk about the flexibility of the team, the resilience. I'd love to get your perspective.
Yeah. So, one of the things we talked about on our last recording was a discussion we had together when COVID started. And, I led by just telling everybody that, what we do in the next few months will define us and our brand for many years to come, right? And that this time will make us scrappy. It'll force us to be creative. It'll push our comfort levels and things like that. And it'll challenge us as individuals and as a team.
Yeah. So let's break that down too. I want to understand how you were challenged personally. Maybe did you find some things about yourself that would have only possibly came through during this time?
Absolutely. I think one of the themes that, I carry into Cloudwater from my previous experience, my last business, is that although I was called the CEO, I don't really think I've, come into my own as a CEO, really until I started Cloudwater. And that was, forget about all the adversity. It was just really learning, because I had such a great business partner and on board, and I have a great team, but it's a little different when, I'm in a different seat, and it's forced my game, as I like to say, to really upgrade in a lot of ways. And so one thing I found out about myself is, really digging in and trying to be thoughtful about decisions, be less emotional, rely on my great team, and, but also be decisive, right? And not, you can't forget about game face and feigning it, like really being decisive and not afraid to make mistakes. One of the things that held me back in the past, I never wanted to make a mistake. Like, who does? And I think it held me back from like being vulnerable, like in living. You don't live until you're vulnerable, right? So
how do you balance, especially during this time of being empathetic, being understanding to your employees, being understanding to maybe potential vendors, with, as you said, being more decisive? How do you balance being pragmatic and also being empathetic?
Yeah, well, I don't see decisive as meaning cutthroat. I mean, I think I see it as, kind of creating a process which lends itself to, on the backdrop of how I operate, what is our desired outcome? What is in the best interest of our business? And not at all costs, right?
Of course.
I mean, I think there's winners at all costs, which is fine. I'm more of a middle ground. I think, we're going to win, we should win, but we shouldn't die in the process, right? So I think decisive just means like setting up a foundation and a platform where you can make decisions with input, but at the end of the day, you can't rule by committee. I hate to use the word rule, but there is a single point of contact in every department, and I am the single point of contact to make decisions, which, by the way, again, doesn't mean I make them on my own. I make them with great input from people. But at some point, you just say, look, we have to go. And you can't say that word apprehensively. You're like, let's go, right? And the team will invariably buy into that because they were part of the decision anyway, right?
Right. And how has the team responded to the new Marc?
I wouldn't call it a new Marc. I think it's
I
think it's an evolving Marc. I didn't wake up one day and just say, "Hey, look at me!" Right? I think it's also how I respond to the team. I think again, it's a two-way street. So I've learned a lot from my team. I've learned a lot by using different styles and then seeing how people react. And there have been some times where I've done some things and I've caught on a different reaction. And instead of pointing at that team member, I like to say I work during the day, I think at night. And I think about, what I need to do tomorrow or what's going on. And also, what role am I playing in the inevitable outcome of Cloudwater. So,
absolutely.
But I think in general, people sometimes say I'm too nice. And because I am a very empathetic person.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, well, yeah, there isn't, right? You just don't want it to be misconstrued for weakness because it's not.
Even being a Rangers fan, I could let that one go there. No, I mean,
I did that just for you, bud.
It's all good. It was so funny. I was actually going through some old boxes yesterday. I found my Islander jerseys from when I was in high school, but that's a story for another day. But let's also talk about, what's happening in the market right now. I mean, things have been changing so much. I mean, what have you learned specifically about, your product in the market, and how have you guys pivoted?
Yeah. So, one of the strategies that we said that we were going to undertake during this very uncertain time in retail was to really strengthen our digital channel. And it goes back to some of the questions: how did the team handle it, and what was the outcome? And we grew it by 300 to 400%, and we've maintained that growth through this. And that's one area we found predictability, right? Which is great news for the business, right? So in May, we had a month or two of, an uptick. Now we have a couple other months of maintaining that and growing that digital channel. And it's fantastic because every CEO entrepreneur wants to find predictability, recurrence of things they don't have to worry about. Just say, okay, let's grow on this. So I think the team did a fabulous job, kind of pivoting or being nimble while retail, started to come back, which is, again, good news for the business.
I mean, have you found also, we talked about this before, and a lot of my other clients are in this DTC e-commerce world too, where you're getting all these new customers into your pipeline. What are you doing to retain them? How are you going to ensure that, hey, listen, this is great, I got the Cloudwater coming, but I'm going back to this store, and maybe there'll be some other products that maybe didn't have this availability and deliverability in the past. How do you retain them as customers?
I give them Ranger tickets. That's easy, right?
How many cases do I got to buy for those, right?
Look, I mean, you need the combination, right? One of our goals is, I think, is and should be for many, you want to be available to your customer in her daily life cycle, right? So when she's out on the go, you want to have grab and go. When she's home, you want to give her the convenience of, ordering in bulk and saving some money and having it in the fridge, right? So it's however we, obtain that customer, we want them to know they can obtain Cloudwater in various channels.
All their touch points.
Yeah, I mean, building our community kind of person by person. We don't, like I said last time, we don't buy users. We don't feign, whatever the numbers are, they are. We're very active on social, as are our users. We have a really strong email marketing and retention program in the back. Our customer service is second to none and gets tested a lot in these challenging shipping times.
Right.
And so, we've given refunds and codes, and, we're not giving away the farm. We let our customer know we care. We get a lot of great feedback. We put reviews up on the site, and we get tons of 5-star reviews based on, taste and how their experiences with Cloudwater, which again was our original strategy, to create a premium experience, not just a great tasting beverage, but an experience with a brand. And it's really helping out.
And that's critical. Marc, how do you handle negative reviews and negative feedback?
I don't handle them very well at all. I really take them to the heart, which is, I think, a good thing. So I personally reach out to the negative reviewers, and I ask them, to have a conversation with me. And some of them responded by saying, "Oh, I didn't think that was going to be posted on your site. And, I didn't want to, I'm not trying to hurt you." And I said, "No, you're not hurting us. You're helping us."
Exactly.
But I want to understand, the context of it. And actually, let's just say there were 10 out of the, the 80 or 90 that we have, that might be high. But it turned that conversation around into something very positive. And 90% of them have reordered, right?
It.
So I don't know if I can do that when the business scales, but I could do it now. And so, I'm quite hands-on when it comes to that.
And feedback's a gift, right? Feedback means that somebody cares. Feedback means that someone gives a crap to at least respond and tell you what they're feeling. And that also, to me, my personal take as a marketer, it's a sign of loyalty. Right? Because if they weren't loyal, if they didn't want to see your product improve, if there wasn't attributes of that they actually enjoy and they want to see it be better because they want to try it again.
Well, that's the first thing I say is I'm grateful for you taking the time, and your feedback helps us to become better. Help me a little understand, why this was a 3-star review and what can we do better as a business besides, changing a flavor that, they might not like. There's not much I could do about that. But again, invariably, we get a lot of positive stuff on our, our flavors, which, by the way, I point out, if they get the variety pack and they don't like the grapefruit, we didn't make all the flavors for one person. It's a diverse portfolio. And so they understand that, and they start ordering cases of their favorite flavors, which is part of the process.
Something for everybody here. And I want to talk about that, the evolution of the product too. And I saw in the recent trade pubs, you guys are coming out with a non-CBD water. Is that like an immunity line? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we were able to do, during COVID is ask ourselves and continue on that theme, how are we going to come out of this, right? And I think some businesses are just trying to, get through it. And we said we're growing through it. And, there's a couple of reasons why we came up with Cloudwater Plus. That's our new line, which is an immunity-based formula, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But it was really on the hypothesis or question, would people drink Cloudwater if it didn't have CBD in it, right? And could we take all this brand equity that we had and evolve? We're a functional beverage business, right?
100%.
So we didn't set out to Cloudwater brands is from the beginning. So we knew we wanted to evolve. And here's something that our core audience is really concerned about, which is their immunity. And we decided to leave the same flavor profiles because of the great feedback we got. We also knew we wanted to move quickly to market. So, step one was proving that out to ourselves, and I think we did very quickly. Second was the unpredictability of the regulatory environment. It doesn't make it easy to say, process map out where we're going. And when, with COVID, the Fed and local municipalities have punted some of the regulatory framework that they had promised. And we don't have time or cash flow to sit here while they get their, their crap together.
You have
and
to be
it's
realistic and
understandable,
pragmatic.
right? So, what we said was, look, we can broaden the brand, right? While, keeping to our function, keeping to our why we exist and why our, customers would really care, by creating something that our customers tell us they love with a formula that would also fit into what their concern was. And the great news there is that we can branch out now with no regulatory issues to a national footprint. And we were very lucky to land some national partners right out of the gate. As soon as we told them about the brand or the product, they flipped, because they fit into the category of brands that want to work with us, but had to wait for CBD to be regulated.
Right. And how are you positioning that? Is it going to be positioned as a premium flavored carbonated beverage?
Yeah. I mean, we make
and
premium,
the La Croix and, that whole line.
Yeah, we make, this is not in the La Croix category. This is a functional beverage. It has 100 RDI of vitamin D and zinc, right? So,
I mean, that's what people need right now. People looking for their immunity boosters. We talk about what are those compounds and vitamins that are going to boost our defenses. I mean, we're doing a great job here in New York too, but every little thing counts. And you got to listen to your customers and listen to the market.
And again, the beauty of a community. So if you love our flavor profiles and you love our brand, then would you love something that is now going to help boost your immunity?
And is the early feedback, I mean, do you think this is going to, eventually take over the CBD line? I mean, where do you see this playing into the forecast?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I think initially, if we were to create a race, which I think good companies do, this will take an early lead, right? I mean, we're making nice progress in CBD, but this will now extend us to a national footprint as quickly as we want to. But what happens there is now we are getting into brands and retailers that we were having trouble getting into because of CBD. For example, Whole Foods. I'm not announcing any deals today other than this, but let's say we're on the shelves in Whole Foods and consumers are buying it. Well, when CBD finally comes around and Whole Foods starts to, accept CBD brands, we just call the buyer and say, hey, here's another SKU. We can also now reach on the digital world an unlimited amount of consumers, which we weren't on Amazon. We can't advertise on Facebook. We can't do stuff. And so now we can bring millions of consumers to our website, based on the immunity line, and they'll say, oh, they have a CBD line as well. Right. So I think this jettisons, the business in a very meaningful way into next year.
100%. As a consumer of your brand and your products, there's times when maybe you do not want to consume the CBD line, and you still love the flavor and you want all the other benefits too. So you have options as a consumer, and you're just expanding and building loyalty. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And I asked when we recorded this show back in May, we talked a lot about silver linings, and we also talked about what we thought the new normal was going to look like. And New York State's different. We've done a great job here. Let's talk about what is that, now that the light at the end of the tunnel is in sight for you. Has your perspective on the new normal changed?
Well, I think we're still figuring that out, Adam. I mean, there's a surge in the rest of the United States. We are for once insulated. We were the epicenter, and now we're forced quarantining or trying to maintain that testing under 1%, low death rate, and so forth. The question is, how strong is that dam to keep these people out or keep people in New York safe? And no offense to when I say these people, but we don't want another spread. And we want to see the states like California, which are important markets to us, to get this under wraps very quickly. I'd be in a better position to answer that. I do think, though, looking into next year, we'll get back to a new normal. But again, with vaccines, we don't know what percentage of who's taking it. And we might be in a lower touch economy, for the foreseeable future. And that's why a digital and retail strategy is and having both of those channels be very strong is so important.
100%. And last but not least, when we look ahead at challenges in the next 12 months, what do you think the biggest challenge to your company is going to be?
It's right now it's fundraising. And, the interesting part about that is, the company has cash flow, but it will not be able to keep up with the demand that we're creating. The silver lining there is a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs go out and say, give me your money and I'll do this. I'm going back out now to fundraise and say, look what we've done. Give me your money and we'll do even more. And I think our ability to do that, the silver lining to create that discipline internally, will start to attract, investors individually and institutionally. But until I have that money in the bank, it remains a challenge. And this team has been able to overcome that. I'm very confident as the story continues to get better, we'll be able to, continue to raise money in the business.
That's fantastic. And I love having a front row seat to the Cloudwater story. It's a fantastic product.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Yes, thank you. And we'll add this to the time capsule. Marc, thanks so much for jumping back on.
Thanks, Adam. Always great to be here. Appreciate it.
One thing that really resonates with me about our conversation is your authenticity. It shines bright as hell, Marc. What does that word authenticity mean to you?
I mean, I'm sitting here in my own body, in my own space, just talking to you like, you're a great guy. I've watched your show, great guest. I don't know you, but I feel like I do. And I feel comfortable having a conversation. I don't have an agenda here. Look, I need to sell the crap out of my product to make it.
You're a salesman, yeah.
But, I'm comfortable in my own skin. And so we're having a conversation about topics that I am incredibly passionate about. And, I'm an advisor, I'm a mentor in the philanthropy world, and so if I can help people and through my experience, they're only going to get it if it's real. If I sit here and try to sugarcoat it or BS people, it's not going to work. So, my only agenda is to try to just tell you the unfeathered truth, whether that comes out on the other side, like, wow, that was great for Cloudwater or not. You were gracious enough to have me as a guest, and I'm giving you, exactly how I see from my life.
And I appreciate that as a host, man. It's awesome. Marc, what is the single greatest piece of advice you've ever received that you take action on every single day?
I know it right off the top of my head. Brush your teeth twice. No. So
wash your hands.
I was walking down the street after I sold my last business, and a very successful guy that I have a lot of respect for said, "What are you doing?" And I made a couple of bucks. It wasn't retirement money. I had some money. I was like, I'm going to invest here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. He's like, what are you doing? And I looked at him. He said, Marc, the greatest investment you ever made in yourself was you. Put your effing checkbook away and go think about what you want to do next. I am so grateful. I put my checkbook away. I stopped thinking about everybody else's business. And I started to just open my mind. So we started the show to create that opportunity when it came by that I'd actually see it. I was so busy writing checks and like, hey, I got a couple of bucks. I never would have been in the place to accept this job. And I am forever grateful. It is one of the best pieces of advice. And the last is my mother, rest in peace. She said, when you're most needy, Marc, give. And I didn't know what she meant at that point, but I certainly, I have one tattoo on my body. It says, in your honor. And it was because of that statement, when you think you're most needy, go help somebody else and see how needy you think you are. And I've always lived, with that, over my head. I'm grateful for those experiences.
I love it, man. We talk a lot about, this show is going to air. This show is just for everyone, we are recording this show on the Cinco de Mayo on May 5th. But Marc, this show is probably not going to air till late June, maybe early July. And I want to use this as a little bit of a time capsule moment here. Right? We're going to go back and we're going to listen to this when this airs. Let's talk about one professional silver lining and one personal silver lining that you've experienced over the last 2 months.
It actually happened in December, if that's, or you mean during this crisis?
During the crisis, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was really understanding what true accountability was for me and what I'm actually responsible for here. I think when things are going well, it's a lot of fun to be like, hey, I'm the CEO of a cool beverage brand. But, I realized that there are people suffering out there. There are people at my company who are scared for their jobs. There's a family that, I have that's anxious and so forth. And, finding the balance to be accountable to all of the responsibility and, and finding the positivity through it, because it's really, there's a VIP invitation down that dark rabbit hole that a lot of people are following down in this situation. And it's continuing my workouts and continuing to be true to myself and my responsibility. And I do have to say, I'm proud of myself the way I've balanced because, we are navigating, through this. And you asked me about personally, as well.
Yeah.
I picked up and moved out of my apartment in New York City, which was a nice place in Tribeca. I stopped buying things. And it wasn't about hoarding cash. I think for me, this experience just reminds me that I come from humble beginnings and I don't need much more to be happy. And I'm married to my wife 16 years. She is my effing best friend. She also does the social media for our company. She is literally my best friend, and I'm really lucky to be with her. And my kids are great. And not that I needed to realize that, but and talk about just enhancement of it. I think it helped me grow to just realize I'm now in my early 50s that I did some things. I come from a really shitty background, beginning. I've done some really great things in my life, including the things that have happened to me, and I'm grateful for it. And it's great to be able to sit here in the middle of a crisis in a company that's struggling and actually with a big smile on my face, and I mean it because that's how I feel.
I love it, Marc. Fantastic. And last but not least, right? As you mentioned earlier, you come from humble beginnings. You've been there, done that, successes, failures. You've been at the bottom. You're climbing your way to the top, man. When you had to dig down deep, you need to really reach down inside and really harness that inner tenacity, right? And on the flip side of that, right now, during this conversation, you talk about all these amazing things that are happening with your company that you're building. You talk about, the love and affection that you have for your family just shines bright. Marc Siden, what is your North Star?
Well, I mean, to me, it's, I don't want to say success is my North Star, but, I think what guides me, is, I was unfortunate enough to lose my father very early in life, and then my mother before I was 30. And I chose not to be a victim, about that. And I became a self-parenting person. And I set a standard for myself, and I hate to say it's me, but I do have to look in the mirror every day and ask myself if I've, done what I've needed to do, and also, add corrective measures to that. And I set a very high bar for myself. And anybody who's ever worked for me, they'll tell you that during the process, they might not have loved me, but they afterward understood why I set a high bar, why I expected so much out of them, and why I push them to their limits, because I do it for myself. It's the way I set the tone for myself. And I think the silver lining to some of that tragedy I went through is that it helped me to really do that on my own, and and create a self-guidance. And it's really been helpful, particularly at times like now.
I love it, man. Marc Siden, thanks for spending some time with me this morning. I appreciate it.
This has been such a pleasure. I'm not sure how much time has gone by, probably an hour, but it felt like 5. You're great. You're a great host. Your show's great. People are lucky to listen to you, and I'm grateful for this.
And I appreciate, this relationship. Where could folks find you? Where could they learn more about you? Where could they learn more about Cloudwater?
Sure. I'm on LinkedIn under Marc Siden. We're at Cloudwater CBD on Instagram, Cloudwater Brands, or cloudwatercbd.com. We're doing a lot of specials out there right now, lowering our prices, free shipping. And, we're trying to donate to, some charities as well, if people have ideas. So we're trying to do our part through this, and, we love the support. We need the business to make it through, and, we'd love to build our community. So I appreciate the exposure.
That's great stuff. Marc, thank you again. And everyone who is joining us on the podcast, thank you so much for hanging with us today. You know where to find us on all the social media channels. Visit thepodcast.com, click link, subscribe, share, all that kind of good stuff. Remember, take your online, offline, and catch us next week for another great episode of the podcast. Take care, everybody.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.